You've got 3 lenses, so you're rich, impulsive, or both. You're not at a point with the Mavic 3 anymore where it's an easy bake oven and whatever you film, it just comes out perfect. You have to know some composition and photography principles. You got to know how to fill up the frame of this shot. Some fast advice: filming directly at something is typically very boring. Balancing it with the action or whatever's going on in the background or showing off the environment makes the frame way more expressive. Your frame is a canvas and you want to fill it up and use the whole thing, the same way you wouldn't just paint in the center of a painting. In your horizon, you're going to be looking for things on screen that are this sized because this is the framing that you're actually working with when you're zoomed in. These 2 telephoto lenses have smaller sensors and they only shoot in 4K. Not the end of the world, but you will notice the difference when you're shooting in low light on the smaller sensors. With either of these lenses though, either way, you now have perspective on how large something is. If it's a stadium or a tall building, now you can show off how big it is with something small next to it in the same frame. That wide lens is basically the best camera you will get in drones right now, but it is very wide and it's a little too wide all the time. So the middle lens that they added is an important improvement because you'll probably be using it the most if you're switching lenses. That framing, that slightly zoomed in look, was desperately needed. As for the 7X, how often does it get used? You do need to be pretty far away for it to work, but it does have its uses. Look at the scale of this mountain with the houses beneath it. You can feel how big this is and the depth of the environment. All these houses cascading up the hill because you have this lens now, so you have a new perspective. So I'll just tell you right away that with the 7X, the easiest win I've found, if you've got a mountain in any direction around you, you've already got something you can go film today. No matter how far away, looks great after sunset when there's a lot of haze. I have found that's the best case use for the longest lens. Also, you have to be careful when adjusting because this is the wide view and this is how close you are with the 7X. So you want to be in cine mode. It's very easy to see a little bit of camera shake here, so you do need to go super slow. Set that framing up right and just be very patient, and this might take a couple times practicing too. With the 3X, you don't have to be nearly as careful. If you adjust some, it's not super visible like it is with the 7X. The middle lens though, with the larger sensor, has better color and better dynamic range. You aren't always a million miles away though, so most of the time you'll be using the middle lens. I was already cropping in on my footage all the time with the 5.1K footage from the Mavic 3, so this focal length they've added is one I was already trying to imitate. But again, it's great for compressing districts and busy areas into one frame and showing you everything that's happening. So apartment complexes, boats on docks, car dealerships, neighborhoods, developments, you can fly back a little bit and it'll all fit into frame. Number 2 is a rising shot to reveal something dramatic in the background. Here we've got the wide view and the mountains aren't that visible. In real life, this scenery is very dramatic and thankfully we have this 3X lens that makes that a little bit clearer. I would never do this if this was just blue sky back here, but I want to give a little bit of the framing away to the mountains to give them some attention as well. This would be a lot more dramatic with the 7X, but we are too close here, so you would have to be farther away. However, it still does look really nice if you zoom in on the clock tower. Next, we'll try this facing downtown with some mountains in the foreground. Honestly, this looks way better any other time of the year. I picked the absolute worst day, the summer solstice. I've had sunsets that look a million times better, and if you do it when it's darker, it can come out looking like this. Not all sunsets are the same. You're going to learn that pretty quickly doing this. And right here, the sun is not behind the cities, so it looks stupid, but you get the point. And I'm gently rising, very, very gently. You might have to redo it a couple times to calibrate the speed of the control and turning and stuff, but because this came out very weak, I'm going to turn around and try and use the mountains because there's more color back there. Other videos I've talked about smoother gimbal settings. This is where it's most important on that really long lens. On the 7X, any mistake or wobble is exaggerated because you're so zoomed in, so you do really need to be particular about your decision making here. Like, it is hard, you have to get used to it. Right here is typically a good opportunity. You have sunset, a mountain here, and a mountain in the front, the foreground, so you'll see a ton of perspective when you're rising on a shot like this. However, we're using a 1/2 inch sensor. We're just not going to be able to balance this sun out well, so I'm going to get what I can. Not anticipating this coming out well though. Switching to the 3X here gives us a little bit of a quality boost, so we'll try that. We will try to orbit once I balance the shutter for this lighting. Some advice: when you're filming at sunset, you're never going to beat the sun, so don't adjust for the sun because you can have the world's best camera, you're just never going to get dark enough to make it look the way you imagine it. Adjust for the ground and then pull back a little bit from that point, or at least do 2 takes, one dark and one light, because these never come out the way you expect when you try and do the artsy silhouette thing. It's also hard to edit footage like this that's already super contrasty, so you have to be careful because you don't have a lot of wiggle room. While we're up here, over to the right is that perfect opportunity I was talking about. We have our hazy mountains in the distance. You don't have a lot of time at sunset and it's much faster in the summer than it is in the winter, so you have to make these decisions quick. But if in the horizon you see these mountains like this, the 7X is ideal. So while I'm up here, I am getting that mountain haze shot that I talked about. I think it's the most fun as well because you have to go hunt for these little frames in your horizon. I do enjoy the dramatic, fast flying forward approach. It's just that usually by the time I make this decision, I've already got a wobble in there or something and I mess it up. If you can nail it though, it is a shot with a lot of character, like if this was the opening of a wedding video or something. Sometimes at the beach, you'll find cliffs that are set up like this. You don't just want to pick a cliff. You want to look for cliffs that are cascading, meaning each one behind it is a little bit farther out because it gives you something at every distance to focus on. It shows off the depth of the environment. Coves are really good for this, but they're not as good as just finding cliffs lined up exactly like this shot. This will work with a lot of things, by the way. I don't have a shot of downtown, but imagine that these are skyscrapers. You can use the 3x or the 7x on this. Moving left to right with anything lined up in the distance is going to look good. Kind of like that shot I showed you earlier. Anywhere you can find something cascading where they are rising in altitude, leading up to something taller, even if it's a road on a hill, it will come out good on a longer lens. And if you can't find a hill, find some organized structures. A neighborhood is probably a simple answer. And remember, the fastest, easiest way to get likes and to show off the camera's quality is to just shoot at sunset. This advice isn't even a shot, but do yourself a favor. Follow some Facebook or Instagram pages, whatever, but follow some pages with drone footage. The ones that people engage on the most, they comment and share the most. You have all this evidence of what people like to look at, what kind of framing they like to see. So if you want to get views or attention or whatever, you'll passively develop an eye for this just in the background of your day because it'll show up in your feed and you'll keep seeing good looking drone shots and photography. Once you've seen it enough, you will just basically get the hang of it and understand how framing is supposed to look, what gets the most attention, what kind of framing, and how to balance a shot. This way you don't have to actually put effort into it. It just naturally is something you'll get used to. So that when you go to film, you don't imagine all this cool stuff and then it comes out looking like a potato.